this computer. All right. Welcome, everybody. And hi, everybody who might be watching this after the fact or listening to this after the fact. I'm Doran. We have Nathan here, Lisa, we have Jesse, we have Shimon. I'm in my headset, so I can't see who else. Before we start, I just wanted to say tomorrow, probably, maybe the day after or something, we're gonna upload a new version, and this is
Nice.
new setup of the menu. Some of you guys are, and you ready for this? Are you ready?
Yep,
When
I'm
I
watching.
when I go Float Lab, I now have a selection of things, so I can go back to older stuff. So that if
Okay. Oh,
you
wow.
see the mandalas, you now can do that.
Yep. Oh, cool.
So
Nice.
so that's new. And
Okay.
there's a whole
So
bunch of,
that's under the featured float area? That's what that, or under float labbing?
yeah, that's just the float lab.
Okay, cool.
Only the float lab,
Nice.
that selection. The other ones are just simple.
Oh, cool.
So I'm going to plunge right into the mandalas that are always also, as you will see, a little bit different. And here's another new thing. Alisa, you haven't been here, like this is your first time, so this is not the usual thing. We usually don't start by talking about float. We
Yeah.
start with, with the topic of the day. But since there's a new thing tomorrow, I couldn't resist showing this off a little bit.
Yeah, that looks cool.
Now I'm excited to see the sneak peek.
Yeah, we have some new mandalas, and now in this new version, which is not yet published, like I said, when you simplify, you now also simplify the mandalas. You can complexify and do all that stuff.
Ooh.
Nice. Very cool.
It's in the middle, and I'm going to be in the mandalas for a bit, and
That's cool.
let's start. And I would suggest a topic of the day,
Okay.
which is uh, let's go with the endings. Let's go with endings.
Mm.
You know why? Because this week, today actually, we're finishing the 4-week float
Oh,
challenge
yeah.
that we had, and so we're this is the last day. Um, and yeah, there was a lot of really good conversations from that, but it's coming to an end. We'll see what we do next with it. But I thought let's talk about finishing things or things finishing, you know, because you wanted to, or out of your control. Let's share stories. Let's share thoughts. Um, and
Sounds
another
good.
thing that ended was my trip abroad. And I'm very happy to be here in the actual, not at 4 a.m. That was,
Yeah, 4 a.m. was a rough one.
yeah. So endings. What do you got for me?
You know, it's interesting. I'm looking at a creature that is swimming around, and it was swimming in a circle around something, but I couldn't see the thing it was swimming around. So when it just looked like it was disappearing into emptiness and then back out the other side. And that was really fascinating. I think there might have been something like that was like kind of light or white on a white background. And the creature was swimming around in the circle. Every time it went around the little thing, it disappeared and then came out the other side, but it just looked like it was like disappearing into nothing. So that's super interesting. It's not about ends or ending or anything, but it just seemed like really interesting to watch.
Maybe there was an ending and a beginning.
Yeah,
You could see it ending and then
yeah,
again and again.
yeah. That was the thought that came to mind when you were talking, like the traditional concept of like an end is a new beginning. Oftentimes, it's the end of something, it's the beginning of something else. Um, so a lot of times we're maybe there's times when we're sad that something is ending. There's other times when we're excited that it's over. We're happy that it's done and we're moving on to the next thing. So it's not just all negative to be at the end of something.
One of the things I used to really like um, finishing a job. So my background is in animation. So finishing a job or leaving a studio is like it's not like when you're working in a bank and you can work in the same place for 20 years. In animation, it's very rare. So you end up doing it quite a lot. And I always liked it. I always liked this feeling of coming back home after the last day, and I would lock the door and I would just be, just have a me time. And usually there's a little bit of an open-endedness to it, if you don't have the next thing lined up, which you oftentimes don't. And there was
Mm,
this sort of relaxation that came with, this is done and there's no stress for a while.
mm,
And I really like that.
right, right, right. That makes a lot of sense.
Another thing that
I
comes,
had a very interesting experience when I was a kid. It happened the first time when I was a kid. I think I was maybe elementary school on a field trip. And I remember everything slowing down. And I started to think, wow, this is going to be over. And someday I'm really going to miss this. I'm not going to know these people. I'm not going to know this,
Mm,
like this whole thing. And I was like maybe 10 or 9. And then I've had that happen a few more times in my life where it's like everything slows down and I get this very different sensation and feeling of like really appreciate this moment because someday it's going to be gone and way in the past. So it's like I almost
mm.
preemptively end things sometimes to appreciate it, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's happened a few times and it's very distinctive and interesting.
isn't it great to be able to almost have nostalgia to a moment while you're still in it? Like you can see how you would appreciate it down, in the future, which
Yeah,
I
it is a very pleasant feeling, but then it's also like that, no, I don't want it to end kind of a thing, like almost a panic as it's happening, but it is a nice appreciation.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's really
Yeah.
cool. I had that in high school. I did the boarding school for 3 years, and it was a really good time for me after a not such a good time for me before that. It was good for me to be away from home and sort of get with people. Um, and yeah, I remember having that for the 3 years, for the 3 years, all of it. I was like, this is going
Mm.
to be a thing that I remember forever.
It's wild. I'm really enjoying the mandalas. Like I'm not in that world. I'm looking at your version, and
Ah,
I'm wishing I was there. I'm like wanting an end. I want it rhyming in to end and get into that. But that looks really nice.
yeah, it really came a long way. Mike did some more work on it, and
Yeah, it looks very clean. Like I really like a clean look, and the glow, that sort of like glow pulse that's happening is really cool as well.
but maybe I should leave this and leave you with some surprises to be had. Not to make it jealous.
Ah, it's all good. It's all good. It'll be nice for other people to see it in the recording too, maybe and experience it.
What I feel very strongly that we need to do right now, I don't know why it
Hmm.
just came to me. I think because of those things up there. I was like,
Mm.
stuff outside of the mandalas. So you kind of see it through the mandala. You see some other stuff happening, and
Like
maybe it's almost half obscure. Maybe some glowing stuff. Yeah, I think I'm gonna add some stuff.
I don't know why I get this sense like looking at that is almost has like a Sistine Chapel kind of vibe. It feels like artwork on the ceiling of something, and you're looking up at it, and then the pulse is just kind of
That's a
like
beautiful.
really adding to it, but it has that feeling.
That's a beautiful thought. So I'm just wondering. I've never tried that. If I look up, and now I'm actually traveling up like that
Cool.
towards something that could have been a
Oh
ceiling.
yeah, you're traveling up into it, right? Or like
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of feel
yeah.
like you're moving into it, yeah.
Yeah, right now you can't see it on the screen,
Hmm.
but right now I'm looking forward. So I'm like in an elevator now going towards this
Right.
chapel sort of
Right,
scene.
because even in the current version of float in like just a regular world, when you recenter it, it's not actually centering, like you're still floating in the other direction, right? You can't float into something, but the mandalas you can kind of, right? And the maybe
That,
energize you could.
so that could be, I mean, mandalas I think are actually really cool for lying down on your back and
Yeah,
because you really feel
that's
it.
really cool. I'm super curious about that now too.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna take my laptop and go over to my couch instead of being sitting on my desk at my desk.
Alyssa, are you floating or looking at the screen?
I am floating and blissfully floated off with the mandalas.
Nice.
Right. That's great. All right, I'm gonna go into something else. I'm gonna go into relax today, I think.
This is fun.
Oh, I'm in the Dallas again.
You couldn't get away from them.
Couldn't escape.
They're coming for you.
But this will transition into something else, so I'll just.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, enough about float. So we had an interesting discussion there about endings. Yeah, so school, Lisa, you mentioned that, and that was my first disappointing ending that I was expecting for
Hmm.
years, and then I didn't feel good when it came. Um, so you kind of spend the 12 years in our case,
Hmm.
right, waiting for it
Yes.
to be over, and then when it's over, at least my experience was that I was like, wait, what now? Because you're so used to everything being prescribed to you. This is what you have to do now, and this is your next step. Like you don't have any choice. All of a sudden, it's just completely open, and it's disconcerting. You go like, oh, I'm never going to see these kids that I've been, studying, all my friends. What happens now? It's actually scary.
I
That's
found it
really
very
fascinating.
freeing and exciting. Like I felt like I was so ready to be out of school and I already was dipping out of it. Like in high school, I was already taking college courses and not coming to school half the time and taking online courses. And then when it was done, I was like off and running. I took off and traveled away to college. I traveled around the world. I went across the country. Like it was like a snip of the wires for me. And I came when I lived in California 10 years and then came back. Now I'm back in my hometown and I'm like, I don't want to see anyone from school. I don't want to see anything from my past. I'm like onto something new and different, and I don't like revisiting things. So it's been interesting
Mm.
coming back to the hometown. Like I don't want to see the places I grew up. I don't want to see people I went to school with. Like it's I feel like I had a different reaction to it. Like not a negative that I have any negative feelings towards it, just like, okay, that's old, on to the next.
That's
But
so that's so
Mm.
yeah,
interesting. I have the exact same thing. It's not like the fact that I was a bit disconcerted moving out of school doesn't mean I wanted to go back. And I have the same thing. I often say to people that I don't like even pictures, old photos and stuff like that. I never look back at anything.
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
I always want something new. Like even I get excited if I buy something new, like I don't finish the old one before I get to the new one. Like I just move on really quick and it's I'm so excited to keep going forward. But
Mm.
yeah, I do that a lot in my life.
I can't relate to any of that at all. No, I'm just joking. Like I'm literally like moving new countries all the time. we almost moved apartments this month just for like, just to have some, just to be a new experience, and even though everything was good at the other place. And I was like, is this a good decision? I'm not sure if this is a good decision, but anyways, we ended up deciding to stay here now. Um, and it's not a good decision or a bad decision, it's just a decision, and the ending and the beginning thing, for me, that's always a fun experience. Like lately is, you're leaving one place, and I always think to myself, oh man, I'm gonna miss this place, I'm gonna miss this XYZ, and then I get to the new place and I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about the other, I forgot about the other place. I mean, some of that might be my ADHD and sort of the what do you call it? I don't know why I lost train of thought on that one, but it's very ADHD
Yeah.
irrelevant. But it's the out of sight, out of mind, sort of there's a technical term for it, but when I'm away from something, I'm not thinking about it. And so therefore it's not really it's not like I have no disrespect to people or things or places that I do love. It's just that when I'm not around that, I'm focused on whatever's around me now. And so, but I really think beginning, ending, and beginning is such an interesting concept for this conversation. And for me, it's very relevant because it's a cyclical thing. Like I'm always new beginnings, new endings, ending, going back and forth. And I'm sort of distracted right now too because I'm laying down on the couch. I decided based on that conversation we had about looking up and how it might look. I'm actually laying down and relaxed, and things are floating above me. I don't see where I'm headed to or anything. It's almost like you're laying down in the back of a truck or something, or a vehicle, and then looking up at the sky, and then and everything is just moving above you. And so that's really interesting feeling. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
this.
I was actually thinking about, still thinking about building an experience that is made for that. So it is
I
made for
think it's,
the everything that's interesting actually happens above you, sort of
I
thing.
think that's a great idea, because right now, the area that I'm in, I don't even know what it is, if it's like, yeah, but I'm seeing like some like fluffy looking kind of cloud like things above me. And I'm laying down in the Quest Pro, and I just got like a pillow propped under my head so that it's not like pushing on the strap. And these fluffy like cloud like things are floating above me, and the odd time like a geometric shape will go by a little faster than everything else. And it's very cool experience. It's very relaxing for sure. So um but yeah, that's another thing too, right? Like in some ways, like I began this float sitting up, and then something happened and I decided to end that and go to a different way, and this just feels so different. And we've done this so many times, but this just feels like a different experience.
Yeah,
Oh, I got the mandalas now. I wanted those.
yeah.
Really cool.
Now you can change. You can use the B button to change.
Oh, the B button. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
that's
and
what it
then
was. I
and
was
then
just gonna ask you, oh my God, that is amazing. That is amazing. So now I'm laying down looking straight up into the mandalas like you were. I know they're not the exact same because you got the newer version coming, but this is really nice.
yeah. The old ones are nice as well. Not as
The
nice.
B button, I forgot that. Next time I should try that on the other thing too, but the mandalas, it's perfect, just coming down at you. I'll probably use this more often now. I'm going like laying down before sleep or something.
Yeah, I never thought about that until you mentioned the Sistine Chapel.
It does, it feels a lot like that.
Yeah, that
It's
laying
interesting,
down feature
actually.
would be, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, the laying down and having things floating over you would be perfect for massage. So I was
Oh yeah,
imagining that.
I was thinking about you in that sense, yeah.
that would be really good. Yeah. I think how I'm feeling right now looking up into this is just like, wow, it feels so relaxing. And I was thinking about something else related to ending. I don't actually know where the ending and the beginning is of these mandalas or whatever. They're constantly evolving, and like you can't really tell where the end of one is and the beginning of the next one, like just blurred lines, in that sense.
Yeah, that's very deliberate, of course, but that kind of
Hmm.
brings to mind in the in the context of our conversation, it brings to mind
Mhm.
this idea of some endings are sharp, and then some other endings
Mm,
actually very blendy, and it's hard to sort of celebrate or anything because it's just so underwhelming. It's just so slow. And I wonder what, if you guys have thoughts about that.
mm.
Mm.
I'm having a hard time saying anything because I'm just enjoying the
I was
how
giving
it's
myself a
the flow.
scalp massage and blissed out totally, so I didn't even
Oh
hear half of
wow.
it.
I'll repeat it, but it's it's okay as well to just be a little bit quiet and just experience float. We
Yeah.
do that every now and again. We don't have to speak the
I
whole. But
I
the
gotta
idea
say
was, yeah,
the flare in the mandalas when the like the orange flare kind of comes out, that is so trippy. Like it really feels like it's just coming right at me, and it just feels I actually closed my eyes at that point because it was just like so bright. It's like amazing.
I transitioned into the what we call biolumin.
Okay.
So transitioned, I mean it transitioned, not that I did anything.
Yeah.
Um, so um, the thing I was expressing before was this idea of if we're talking about endings, some endings are sharp. Something ends on a specific day, and then and then some other endings are very slow and sort of underwhelming because it just ebbs away very slowly. And I'm wondering,
Hmm.
um, well, I can share some of my thoughts on that. First of all, I don't like slow endings. I like things to be so like, okay, now it's done. Right now, that
Hmm.
is in this moment. Um, I've had well, this is going to be a bit morbid, but I had like an old teacher. He was 94 when he was teaching me. He was teaching me anatomy and animation at the time. Not animation, just anatomy and drawing. A real old master. I was so fortunate to study with him. Um, but uh, he was super active and fresh and smarter than almost anybody I knew. And then one day he just went to the bank and slipped and hit his head and never
Oh
woke
no.
up anymore. And I, said it as it was for me. Like that's a good way to go. Just,
Mm,
you know, none of that slow ebbing away thing. Give me that, just
mm.
one day done.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to like, I mean, this is kind of a difficult topic, and so I guess trigger warnings and that whole conversation, but like people when something happens quickly and end happens quickly, there's like you said, and there's some situations we like it and other times we don't. Like my dad passed away suddenly of a heart attack many years ago now, but it's such a difficult thing. Although I also agree with you, like the idea of someone being in pain and struggling and health challenges, that's not a fun way to go. It's also very hard for other people around you when something ends quickly, and sometimes maybe one person wants something to end quickly and another person doesn't, and it's not necessarily in the death side of things, but in the in just in any kind of thing. Some people may want it to continue while someone else wants it over. But when something like that happens, it's hard because you have no closure sometimes, it's just like it's just that person's gone, and that's a really difficult thing. It's
By the way, just to
challenging
be clear,
and
I was only referring to that specific situation when somebody's,
yeah,
is really that old and so on. Not like it's a
for
different,
sure, yeah.
for
Yeah.
the.
Well, I mean, no matter how old somebody is, you don't really want them to have to suffer and go through a lot of pain, you know, but I mean, yeah, of course, when you're older, you definitely don't want to be, you know, living that way, especially, but it's just it's kind of an unusual thing, but it brings up an important topic about how like one person, you know, how maybe our desires for endings and beginnings don't match up with other people's um experience, you know, because like there's many times when people might want, you know, you know, something to end, you know, like a relationship or a business deal, or, you know, like any kind of number of things where one person is hoping it continues while the other person wants it over, and there's a mismatch. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma or whatever.
Yeah.
We do talk about this topic a lot in EMS. And yes,
Mhm.
of course, someone dying young and healthy is awful and it leaves a whole ripple effect and people don't have
Mhm.
closure and that's not great. But it's so troubling to see us as a society drag people out that want to go or are ready to go,
Yeah.
where
Yep.
we are so much more humane with animals when they're
Mm.
suffering, when they have cancer, when they are too old and they can't get up on the bed anymore, any of that kind of stuff. We put them to
Mhm.
sleep peacefully, but yet we
Mhm.
will keep people in hospitals, in comas, and nursing homes and drag them
Mhm.
out with medication and where they're not even there because we have a problem with our society facing death. And
Mhm.
it's something with like it's a reflection of our own on them. So it's something
Mhm.
we talk about a lot, that it's like my friends are
Yeah,
nurses and my RN friend said that's one of the biggest things that burns them out is seeing people suffer and drag out and watching the family not be able to let them go. So
for
it's a topic
sure.
we talk about. It does come up often, honestly,
Yeah.
but
Where is
yeah,
it?
it's hard.
Talk about that? I missed it. In what context? What is the group?
So what, sorry?
You're a medical, like
Yeah, for
you're in the medical field.
EMTs,
Mhm. Mhm.
firefighters,
Oh yeah, okay.
Mhm.
nurses, dispatchers. It's a
Mhm.
thing that comes up a lot in discussion is that
For sure.
we
Okay,
see a lot of suffering.
I am expecting that to change, and I want to share why. I think we are uh, our capabilities are changing, right? As a
Mhm.
society, as humanity. Right
Mhm.
now, we we basically, you know, in Western society, at least, I'm not sure about other cultures, we tend to want to keep people alive as long as we can. But what happens when we can keep people alive basically indefinitely because we can
Mhm.
organs because we can, you know, because we get so good at keeping people alive. What happens when you can actually keep people alive 200 years, you know? I
Yeah.
think
Mhm.
at some point, and I think that point is coming soon-ish, you know, in, 20,
Mhm.
30 years, I think we're going to have to start to think about, okay, how long should we keep somebody alive and what happens when when they feel that it's enough. And I think there's going to be a lot more acceptance to the idea of, okay, I'm okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of work going on right now around this idea too, just of dying with dignity and having, you know, having options and it being like a respectable choice and that. And I have some friends who are, you know, quite active in that space for a variety of reasons, you know, whether it's, you know, things they've seen or things they personally experience or whatever. And yeah, it's actually interesting, like, because when you talk about it from the perspective of letting go, it's not dissimilar than a lot of the things we struggle with letting go, you know, like, you know, we have a hard time letting go just of, you know, trauma or challenges or like goals and, you know, other things. Like there's like that's a constant conversation in the mindfulness, you know, space as well. It's like letting go of like striving and just being, you know, just being present. And so when you were saying, when you're bringing up the idea of keeping people alive, like I thought you were talking about something different, which I think is another thing. Like them being able to keep the memories more alive might allow us to let go of the person, you know, when necessary, because we'll, you know, we'll be able to maybe have the voice more easily keep, their voice present, or some of their thoughts, or some of the, meaningful video, like with VR, capturing some of the spatial video and things like that. The classic movie with, I think it's Tom Cruise, I think, right? With, well, what was the name of that movie? But he's like watching a hologram of his daughter and son, and so like
The Minority
he's
Report?
mourning. Yeah, I think it's Minority Report. Yeah, he's like he's grieving them, but he's like seeing this holographic image, and not necessarily helpful to continue watching it over and over again, but like the ability to, have those memories in a more realistic way could be, could help us with letting go in some ways too, potentially. I don't know.
I wanted to say, kind of unrelated, that while we were talking about these topics that are quite profound and sad and sort of existential,
Mhm.
I felt that the space is somehow contributing to my, like, when you were talking about, I think Alicia was talking about the difficulty in letting go and all that, and there
Mhm.
was a school of fish sort of swimming right through
Oh,
time, and I was looking at it, and then somehow it connected to that topic. It was interesting to experience this space as almost part of the conversation.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I actually had a very similar experience because I'm still in the mandalas, and just that glowing sort of ever like flowing, shapes and everything really did seem to connect with that topic very well. Like, um, it has a very, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it, but it definitely does. Like, I wonder what, because psychedelics are actually, used a lot in this like end of life sort of conversation as well, right? Like, there's a really, really cool app actually called Anuma. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to try this, but one of the group members from the workrooms community does these events in there where people go in, and the app is intended for end of life care, but we go and use it as a group and to create the same kind of connection. And the individual people don't have an avatar. They're just they're glowing cloud with a heart center light and two lights for where their hands are. And we do a bunch of different activities, and in that space it has this like very like we're all connected kind of feel, like a very like oneness kind of idea. And just like I'm feeling in this mandala thing, while we're all floating together, you guys are just voices. You're all voices, and I'm here floating. And like, it gives me some sense of like, not necessarily an afterlife or anything like that, but just this idea of like, what are we, and that. And so I think a little bit of that idea, like talking about these difficult topics in flow, could be a very, welcoming, sort of comforting way to discuss difficult things versus, just talking about it in a room where your eyes aren't engaged, or your whole senses aren't engaged. So.
Yeah, and that
Yes,
connect. Go ahead.
to go along with that, I feel like I have some faith restored, that I'm seeing an awakening in people lately, that people
Mm-hmm.
are meditating more than they ever have. They're seeking mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
They are experimenting with psychedelics. They're seeking
Mm-hmm.
therapy and different pathways. So I feel like there is an
Mm-hmm.
awakening happening where people are going to
For
be
sure.
able to face those difficult letting goes, and people
Mm-hmm.
passing away, and um,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of feels good to see that happening with people.
Agreed. Definitely.
I think that's the
Definitely.
positive side of times being difficult, is that people are more, they become, well, depends on whom, but I think some people become more close and more difficult, but some people actually, that hardship opens us up and makes us reflect and makes us sometimes better people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's always
I
that
think.
balance. There's the bad,
Mm-hmm.
but there's the good that always comes with
Mm-hmm.
it. There's the dark and the light. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
There also seems to be a change. Like, I know there's a lot of, I don't want to get into some of that stuff, but the generational sort of like stereotypes and things. But what's interesting is like what one person might call like being soft, or being, not being strong enough or whatever, is actually could actually be like a really valuable skill, you know, and it's really interesting to see like some, like you said, the next, like right now, not even different generations, but just people at this moment, because you know, there's people of all ages who are doing exactly what you're saying, like seeking into mindfulness, understanding themselves better, understanding like some of these modalities and tools, and there's more openness to things that in the past were maybe like banned or not considered to be, you know, healthy. And now we're seeing, you know, people dig into that, but people of all ages are doing it. But there is definitely an openness of, I think, a younger generation of people too that have lived through some of the challenges and the trauma created by the previous things. And so yeah, there's kind of a combination. Like the hardships are part of it, but also like there needs to be an openness to try unconventional things or like explore, and then there has to be, you know, support for that. I mean, seeing some support from that, from regulations and whatever, that's kind of pulling back from being so strict about these things and letting it be a choice for people to explore, right? Because it's kind of like it's hard when it's illegal for someone to let go of someone, you know, like in that, going back to the conversation about death, like it's not even legal to do that or to help someone do that, you know, like so you can't, like, you know, you have to go about it in a very difficult way. Whereas if it was not illegal and someone could support someone in the way they want to do those things, then it would be easier to help with the letting go process or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I lived on the border of Oregon, and in
Mm,
Oregon, there is legal euthanasia. And I
mm,
talked to someone whose friend did go that way, and they said that she had terminal lung cancer, and she went to Oregon and got a prescription pill and had a big
mhm.
party with all of her friends, and they had a wonderful night. And then at the end of the night,
Yeah,
she took her pill. And it was like,
wow,
that has to be hard as all hell, but
yeah,
also really beautiful to be able to control that experience
right,
and to be able
right.
to share that experience. So that
Mhm.
it's, yeah,
Yeah, and the closure for everyone is so different, right? Like I'm assuming that that closure for everyone, like everyone may not have agreed with the viewpoint or the decision, but they all got to partake in the experience that they wanted to have at the end. Whereas, you know, whereas you often don't know when and you don't know how, and at some point you lose control of the decision-making process as well, because, you know, because of mental state or whatever. And so, yeah, that's amazing. I mean, to me, that sounds like a much better situation than what a lot of people go through when it comes to that time. So
yeah,
it's amazing, so interesting. Yeah, I do really think psychedelics play a real interesting role, because fear is usually a big part of the reason why it's hard for the person to even like deal with the idea of death, you know, and having help and support in processing that. And you know, psychedelic therapy in different ways, or like MDMAs, you know, being studied by MAPS, and you know, a bunch of other psychedelics that can be helpful to people in both in living, you know, as well, because, you know, processing difficult things while we're alive is not easy either, but when we're passing, I'm imagining it's, you know, even harder.
Right, right, right. Wow, that conversation about endings took us to another.
You didn't know what you're opening up, did you? You
Hey,
didn't know what you were starting when you decided to pick endings.
I, I like it.
Mhm.
I don't think we should shy away from difficult things. I think you allow yourself to think about it, and I agree with you that float is a very good place to think about something like that. It really is different
Yeah,
than if we were sort of gazing at each other. I don't know if I would have been able to have that exact same conversation if we were just in Zoom and we were just kind of talking about it, and it's less ethereal.
right, right. I agree. I think like float also probably helps us regulate our nervous system and other things in the process of talking about it. Cause like, I definitely feel like we could have this conversation and say like the workroom or workrooms, but it'd be a different dynamic. And, you know, people would maybe not be prepared for the conversation the same way we were by floating for a little while before we got there. And then also having the supportive float while we're here, not in a marketing, you know, kind of like way, but just saying like it is such a much more supportive space for your nervous system and for your, you know, your overall mental health in the process. So.
Yeah, that actually kind of connects, Alyssa, to your to the massage situation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do think of it a
Mm,
lot. Like I was trying to figure out a way to incorporate a lot of things without it being too overstimulating, but it's like, can they talk while they're getting a massage, while they're in the headset floating and work through some stuff? Or even if I'm not the therapist by any means, like I'm not certified for that, but maybe have a therapist in the room while we're making them very comfortable and
mm,
scalp massage, face massage, like just something very not so invasive. But I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah,
This is
I
I
mean,
think
something.
it could
I
help
would be,
people.
I'd be down for that experiment. Like, I think that would be so interesting, floating while having a massage. Um, and I could see, yeah, I could definitely see that because we know, even in yoga, like when you do certain stretches or poses, you're opening up parts of the body that then sometimes emotions just flood in that are trapped in
Hmm.
those parts of the body. They often just talk about that when people first start yoga. They're not ready for, like a hip opener, and all of a sudden, emotions are rushing in that they're not expecting. So I think in massage it's similar, right?
And there's also not invasive hands-on massage modalities like cranial
Right.
sacral or Reiki that
Mm-hmm.
it won't be too overstimulating, but they might be able to work through emotions and talk through what they're feeling, and it's not me physically manipulating anything.
Right.
So did you
Right.
try
Yeah, that would be cool.
at all? Uh,
Lots of fun to experiment with.
so is that something you tried yet, or not yet?
I barely grazed cranial sacral in class in school, but that's a certification I absolutely want to get. I do plan on getting Reiki as well. So it's not something I've dabbled with it, but I'm not attuned yet or certified yet to really have a full understanding of it. But I know just from the little bit I've learned that that's something that I want to do and I'll be good at.
Yeah. No, but
That's cool.
what I meant was, did you try any kind of massage with float yet?
Oh, yeah. So the two people that were scheduled to come both had COVID last week. I think one had flu, one had COVID last week. So that was out. But on myself, I've experimented with face massage, scalp massage, neck massage, what I can reach. And that seemed very, when I give a massage, that's the part of the body that I usually hear people snoring. Like that's where I totally
Oh,
relax them.
wow.
So I
Yeah.
feel like that would be the best place to work. I feel like maybe feet, but I think face and neck and scalp is the most soothing, relaxing sensation you can get.
Nice.
Yeah, I could totally see like even the body massage, or like from my perspective, almost anything would be fine, with float as an experiment. But it probably, like you said, it'd be really interesting to do sacral or something like that, or even reflexology or something too might be interesting, like
Yeah,
something
reflexology
where,
we had a clinic
okay,
using float, in
that's cool.
a reflexology clinic. So that, and she
Mm,
was successful. She was very happy with it.
Have you ever
very
tried
cool.
had anyone try floating, float tank with float? I wonder if that would be super interesting.
I
But
thought about that too. That would be amazing.
I
Uh,
don't know how you do it because of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody tried it. Um,
we need a waterproof device somehow. I don't know how we'd waterproof it.
but I don't want to forget something that Elisa said that sort of
Mhm.
blew my mind. I don't know if that's a thing that exists anywhere, but you were talking about therapy session with a therapist
Mhm.
while somebody's getting a massage from a masseuse. So obviously that would require a lot of trust with the masseuse, but uh,
That's
it's
like Inception.
what's that?
Multi levels deep in the dream state. They're like a massage and a float and a therapist all at the same time. Oh
Yeah,
my God. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be for everyone, but I think the few people that would benefit from it would absolutely benefit from it. People dealing with immense trauma,
Hmm.
something that they really have to work through, that might be the best way to do it. People who go to panic or hyperventilate, if we can kind of get them into a calm state, that would be beneficial.
Yeah,
It would
you
have to
know,
be a
even,
team, like you know each
yeah,
other well and you can work with each other well. But yeah, I think in the
for
right
sure.
circumstances, it'd be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, or even a therapist who's trained in massage, which is probably pretty rare, but it would be kind of interesting if that one person could do both things potentially, talk you through it or whatever. The now I'm thinking about all these combinations that could go together. Like now that you've got me thinking about this, Alyssa, the Shakti mat or something, like that, or laying on one of those mats, like if you've seen
Hmm.
those with all the like sharp, like kind of sharp things sticking out, and you
Yep, the
lay on
acupressure
that.
mats. I have one
Yeah,
of those. Yep.
acupressure mat with a floating on, laying on your back on an acupressure mat, floating in the mandalas or something.
Hmm.
What that would
They
be like
even
too,
have
that would be
those
interesting.
mini saunas that are like personal saunas that you zip into. There
Oh
are
yeah, so your head
infrared.
can still be out.
Yep, there's
Yeah.
infrared mats, there's red light therapy mats, there's electromagnetic mats. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
gadgets you can play with where they are just
For
laying
sure.
sedentary. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, I
and
have a red light
that's a
therapy
whole
device with magnetic field as well. I'm getting it fixed right now because the wire got broken, but I would love to try that floating with the red light therapy and
Hmm.
magnetics.
that's a whole thing I haven't I don't know anything about. I like that's the first time I heard about any
Oh
of
yeah.
those things that you just said.
No, but you're right, Melissa. The sauna, like the mini sauna where you zip it up and your head
Yeah.
is out. Your whole body's getting that treatment. That would be amazing with a float headset on. Just being able to like float while you're in that experience. It'd be
Yeah,
pretty
I don't
interesting.
have quite that experience, but I have a
Yep.
bed warming mattress. So it's wintertime and I'll turn my
Oh,
bed
cool.
warmer on when I get in bed and I
Hmm.
completely cuddle up under the blankets and do float at night. And
That's
that's
cool.
probably I pass out in like two or
That
three
feels like
minutes.
it would
It's
be
so nice.
amazing. Yeah. That
It's a
sounds like
little
it would be
cocoon.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds really good. Or like a grounding mat too, or something like that would be
Yeah.
interesting, like being fully grounded while floating or something.
Yeah, there's a lot to experiment with. I know I'll be
Hmm.
using a lot of gadgets in my massage practice, but I'm
That's cool.
interested in seeing how it all incorporates.
Hmm. Yeah, it all sounds really good.
Yeah, super cool. That I love how these conversations go into unexpected places every time, which it's just part of the fun, right? It's a journey.
Yeah,
To
yeah, it's like I was saying this I think a couple weeks ago, like the conversation as abstract as float, how it just keeps generating randomness, and that's what happens with the conversations too. Mm, pretty cool.
I did have a thought that came in at one point to go back to
Mhm.
endings. So
Mhm.
there are endings that occur that you don't even realize are ending as they're ending. Like
Mm,
I remember
mm,
reading something once where it said one day will be the last day that your mother ever picks you up in her arms, and you don't
mm,
realize that that was the last day she'll ever do that. And
mhm,
that makes you think of all the things in your life that you didn't know that was your last time of doing that, and it just happened. So
mhm.
it's interesting to see like how that evolves and you don't even realize it's coming. So you didn't get to think about it or give it much thought probably even after the fact. But then one day
Yeah,
you're like, "Oh, wait, that did stop."
yeah, yeah.
I love that. I love that.
That's really interesting.
It's actually a Stoic principle called the last time meditation. It's
Mm,
Hmm.
really interesting. And it could be even like just appreciating a fleeting moment. Like, for example, um, like this particular flow together session is about to end, and it's not the last time we'll do a flow together, but it's the last time it's going to be this particular configuration with this particular conversation. And there's like
mhm.
this it doesn't have to be like the last time I see my
Right.
mother, or like it could be even in the appreciation of a moment that is coming to an end.
Hmm.
And um yeah.
This is
That's really
beautiful.
interesting. Yeah.
I really love what you said. I think it's a very beautiful notion, and combined with what Elisa said as well. But I think that that is really reflected well with my experience, at least of float. and I think I heard it from others as well, that stepping out, like deciding to stop, or when it stops by itself because time is over, there's a feeling of loss. There is a feeling
Mm,
of I'm just losing this particular experience. Yeah, I don't know if you guys felt that ever.
yeah,
I
yeah,
have had
I
that
would.
before. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
I mean, I think there's a couple times where we floated together and I wasn't ready to take the headset off yet. And I was like, okay, float together is over, but I'm not ready for it to be completely over. I'm not ready to transition. So then I sat in the headset for a little while longer. And then when I finally took it off, like, I guess there's also that sense of like, now is the right time to make that transition. Whereas like, kind of a juxtaposition to what Elisa was saying, where it's like, this the last time happened, you didn't even notice it. You kind of have a choice of when to take it off, and if you take it off and you feel like, nope, I think I want a little bit more, you can actually put it back on and continue. It's like it's kind of interesting when you have that choice. But I was thinking about, and Elisa said, like, into this night of like talking about endings when we come back around to endings and just talk about like the last time. That's very, very interesting. And I think about some random things, like the last time I went to a restaurant that I really loved, that like I went back to the city again and the restaurant is no longer there. And I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't know that was the last time I was gonna see those people and eat
right,
that food and,
exactly.
have that experience. And
Mm.
there's a restaurant in Thailand that we loved. It was near on the way up to the mountain. And we didn't even know the name of it. We called it Mountain Chicken because we had no idea what it was called. And we just like, that was our spot and we would go there. And one day we go there and it's like a clothing shop now. And we're like, oh my God, we don't have their numbers. We don't know anything. We don't know where they are. We asked people around and they couldn't tell us where they went to. And so they just disappeared into the ether essentially. Like, and it was like a very sad moment for us because we don't know where they went. And that was one of our favorite spots and, our first time in Thailand and all this stuff. So like for years we would go back and that was one of our nostalgic moments that's no longer there. It just lives in our memory, but not, we can't experience it again. So
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and to go with the ending of Float, I've had like it normally is on nights when I'm a little bit more irritable and it takes me longer to relax. And then I finally get to that blissed out relax and it
mm.
goes to end. And it's like feeling cold, naked, and afraid all at once. Like it's like all of a sudden you feel how cold the room is, it's dark, you don't know
Mm.
where you are. Like it is a very
Wow.
startling, like, ugh, what just happened? But
Mm.
yeah, I've felt that where it's like all of a sudden I'm cold and I'm distraught that I'm back in the world. Like it's a snap back to reality.
It,
And then yeah, every once in a while I'll be like, nope, I'm going back in. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's an interesting
yeah, it's like
thing
a
that you're saying
Thanks
that
for
there's
sharing that.
physicality to it. Like all of a sudden you feel colder even. Interesting.
That is super interesting. I really appreciate you sharing that too, because that's just such an interesting moment. And I don't think I would have been able to place that feeling, but when you said it, I experienced it, like I know, I feel that moment you're talking about. Like I get it from the way you described it. It's really
yeah.
very interesting.
One of the things I'm hoping to get to at some point, not hoping to, I'm sure we will, but I hope it comes sooner rather than later, is that idea of transitioning, because now we have in Quest 3 and future generations, there's a lot of augmented reality. So what if you
Mm,
transition into float gradually,
yes.
right? And
Yeah.
so instead of being thrown into reality when you decide to stop, and when it stops, it kind of gradually dissipates into reality.
I
Mm.
think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I haven't experienced that yet, but that makes me want to get one so I can experience it.
Yeah.
Well, it
I
doesn't
think
do
I
that
think
with,
that
with float yet, but
yeah.
Yeah.
But I could totally see that working for me too. Like if the end of float, if like the end of a float actually kind of like transitioned into pass through slowly, then you would have this feeling like you're not, it's not an abrupt ending. Cause I even have that experience in workrooms sometimes, like I've been in there for 3 hours, with the community talking, and I take the headset off and it's kind of like, oh, like I'm in, like, oh yeah, that I'm not at the beach in Greece or wherever, like the scene is like,
Yeah,
I'm like in my apartment, and it's just like, it's a little bit jarring. So to have that like transitional fade into my reality I think would be a really nice thing, especially for flow. It might help you retain that, that experience like into the physical world again a little bit more easily. So
I
exactly.
have noticed if I do it in bed at night and I'm
mhm.
drifting off already and kind of falling asleep, as soon as it ends, if I can take off the headset and turn the light off quickly and close my eyes, I go back
Mhm.
to a kaleidoscope and I fall asleep to that,
Nice.
like behind my eyelids.
Oh, wow.
So
Cool.
That's cool.
yeah, like
That's
I'll
cool.
continue to see the images as I'm falling asleep, even with my eyes closed.
Amazing. I love that.
So yeah.
That happens to me. I haven't tried that with float too much to see if I like can see it after, like we've done it a couple times here on the float together. But I do it with the light therapy device that I use. And when I close my eyes after it's over, it's been going for like 15 minutes, and then suddenly the light turns off, and then I just see all the patterns and shapes and things still going. It's amazing. But
Hmm.
the thing I was gonna say to you too about that is you might be able to find a light, like I find with the Quest Pro, like I'm in a very low light environment right now, and it's working like fine. But I don't know how well the Quest 2 is at doing that, but the Quest 3 and the Quest Pro are better at low light environments. And so I usually try to put a very low light on, just enough that the headset will track. Sometimes I can do it
Yeah.
completely in the dark, and then you
If
don't
I
even have
do
to
it
get
in
up,
my
turn the light off.
Yeah, if I do it in my living room, my house at night is very twinkly lights and candles
Hmm,
and dull lighting. My
okay,
bed light on my nightstand is a little bit brighter, but I have
right.
found that it'll work with the twinkle lights. I have a two.
Oh, that's cool.
But with the Christmas lights on and all the other lights off, it'll still work, which is nice. And
That's
it's not as
cool.
jarring when
Yeah.
I come out.
100%, yeah. Because sometimes
Yeah.
I wish the light didn't have to be on, and then I started playing with it and found I could, like today. I just have I just put on the stove light in the kitchen, so like on yeah. Anyways, the fan. Turn the light on there, and then that way it's just a little bit of light that's giving enough so that the tracking stays on, but not so much that I can see a lot of light around me. So.
Yeah, it's like 2 a.m. in the bar when they switch the lights on, and all of a sudden it's like very upsetting and overwhelming. And
Yeah, like after the
yeah,
movie or something, right? They just put all the
yeah.
lights on and you're like, oh my God. Cool.
Nice. Do we want to do a little 5 minutes casual
Yeah,
mindfulness, not mindfulness, guided float?
yeah, I'm down if people want to do it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna see where am I at here. I'm floating on my back, so things are coming down at me. It's kind of let me.
Where do you want me
Let,
to go to, Nathan?
where's
Guide.
everybody else? Are you in
I'm in
you're
relax.
in relax?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just stay and relax. I think I'll just sit up so that I have objects coming at me a little bit more, and then I can not fall asleep while I'm doing this. While I'm trying to guide things. Okay, one sec. Let me just restart the
Okay. Let me just
oh, I need to
before you
hit B
start.
here. I'm going back to restart the relax for myself now. Okay, there we go. Oh, and I got the mandalas, so I don't know what anyone's gonna be in, but we'll try to work with whatever anybody is in.
We can just, I mean, if
Oh,
you want to go to
I go.
relax, sorry, not to relax. What was the other thing? To imagine, so we have a more
Mhm.
consistent kind of thing. I don't know. We
I don't know. Relax feels good. I think let's try it. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think the conversation we've had today feels like it could go wherever. So I'm just gonna let us start there and take a nice deep breath, and we'll go for about 5 minutes. And I will always say, just take a nice slow breath in, like as slow as you can, and then on the way out, even slower if you can. And then wherever you are, let's just try to take in the whole environment to start with. Just don't necessarily look at one specific thing. Just try to absorb, kind of take in the whole view, see it coming right to the edges, whatever's passing you, and also see them middle kind of at the same time. And since we've been talking about endings, it might be interesting just to try to see that for a second, you know, where does this end? Like, is it ending at the edges of the screen? Is it ending? We can't even see the ending, maybe it's way behind us. It's just a thought that, like, what we see is ending, but is it all ending? Only Doran and the team knows. Does it end after it passes us? We don't know. And then we can look out into the center, out into the middle, as far as you can see, and watch as a beginning comes towards you and then becomes the ending on the other side. Depending on where you are, it might take longer, shorter to get to the ending and get to the next beginning again. And let's try what Elisa was saying. Just for a second, close your eyes, and do you continue to see something? Do you see a glow? Do you feel objects, or do you imagine them, even with your eyes closed? And then, for fun, flicker your eyes open instead of just opening them right out. Just flicker them a little bit, almost like you're taking shots with a camera multiple times. How does that feel? We've got multiple endings and beginnings every time we blink. And then maybe take another nice long deep breath. And if you're seeing objects, try to time your breath with the objects coming at you. Just slowly in and slowly out. If you want, you can do a few more of those at your own pace. And notice how it goes deep down into the body. See if you can bring it deep down. And then almost follow it back up and then out into the next thing floating past you. If you get the rhythm just right, it might feel like you're breathing in that thing that's coming towards you. And then you're breathing out again. And then just take a moment to look at anything that you want to look at. And it's your choice. If you're not sure what to look at, look up, look down. Decide if you want to. Thank you for floating with me. Floating together again.
Thank you, Nathan. That was great. I feel,
You're welcome.
I try to do this to myself sometimes. It's one of those things that you just can't do in the same way with yourself as you, even if I know the kind of stuff that I can repeat in my head some of those ideas that you bring up, but somebody else like following an instruction, so you don't have to think about the instructions, you just have to follow them,
Mhm.
really changes things,
Yeah.
you know?
Like you
Yep.
can tickle yourself.
That's a good example. You know, it reminds me of how you get you get delighted by float because you experience something that you didn't necessarily intend or design yourself, but you put the pieces together, but they're just coming at random times in random ways, and it still delights you. Like I enjoy that when you're like, "Ooh, I've never seen this before," you know, like that kind of thing. Yeah.
I have a couple of moments like that today as well. I also wanted to say, this is something I was thinking when you were asking us to close our eyes and imagine imagine the experience as if the eyes are open, or at least that's how I interpreted it.
Mhm.
Um, that could be a very valuable thing for somebody who really gets a lot from float in terms of
Mhm.
relaxation or anything else. If you can do that while floating every once in a while, even for a minute at a time, I feel like you might be able to kind of train your brain to bring those images up at will. And so when you're on the
Mhm.
bus and you need a little, or anywhere, the dentist's office, and you need a little bit of relaxation, you might be able to
Mhm.
just throw yourself in there if you've exercised it this way.
I think so. I really think so. Like there's a guru from India that I really like. I found out about through Insight Timer, and I ended up going to India and being there in person with them, like the at the ashram, and it was really fascinating to me. Like he says something that really gets me every time. He's like, you know, just because you have to, you know, pick up a phone or go back to work or something like that doesn't mean you have to come out of this. And because he's doing like meditation and mindfulness and really helping you to be present in the moment. And we have a misconception that because we have to go do something else, that we're no longer, being able to be meditative or mindful, like in the way that we can be when we're sitting by ourselves. But what you just said, to me is the same kind of thing. Like when we float like this and we see these images and that kind of stuff, there's no reason why we can't close our eyes, somewhere else and try to imagine the things that are floating by us and imagine and have a moment of that same experience, even though we're not here, because we know what that experience is like. Sure, it's really helpful to be in float where, you don't have to do the effort and the work to sort of like be present like that. But I think that like what he was saying is like that mindset of needing to thinking like the day-to-day life is different from the mindful experience. No, it's all one, but we sort of choose to like think about it differently, so we go into work with a different mindset. But if we just go in there and say like I'm not coming out of this, just because I have to pick up the phone doesn't mean I can't be present in the moment in my experience. And yeah, I just feel like that is a really good reminder just to take what we experienced here tonight, and like when we go through our day tomorrow, we're able to be in this like same kind of state or whatever. And when we're in flow, we're just kind of like topping ourselves up and reminding ourselves about those things that we should, we can carry with us throughout the day, right?
Yeah.
I think also Jane McGonigal, which I think does a lot of research on gaming and that kind of thing, and the patterns and the shapes and the stuff of flow is very similar to what her research does about like Tetris and video games, and how those things help to overwrite, like essentially, I could be saying this in the wrong way, but short-term sort of like memory with all these patterns and shapes, so that it actually helps with they did research that said like if somebody experiences a traumatic thing, and within a certain amount of time you get them into something like a game with all these
Yeah,
patterns
like
and shapes
Tetris.
and
I
colors,
heard about that. Yeah.
that can prevent that from creating a deeper trauma or a stronger impact. And that's been my experience when I started using games, and that I used them after listening to her talk on a podcast. And there were some things that were quite traumatic that were bothering me, um, And I found that as I started to do this, when that was a situation, that I stopped having the flashbacks of that thing. I stopped having the recurring traumatic feelings, and I could then think about that situation in a much different light, you know. And so I definitely encourage people to think about that as well, like the colors and the shapes and all this of this can be really useful to processing difficult emotions and that.
Yeah, I have that story when I went to the dentist. This was when a long time ago, we were still working on float, so I was spending a lot of time in it at that time, much more than now, actually. And I went to the dentist, and I didn't ask for it. I didn't try to do anything, but just out of the anxiety of it all, the music and the sights of float started floating in my head and playing.
Yeah.
Again, not that I tried to do it. It's just happened because my brain, like, I need, like, this is a resource. It recognized that it's a resource that it needed.
That's amazing. I love it.
All right. So I think we've been at it for a while.
A little bit.
This has been I think one of our more interesting and deep conversations in here out of many very deep conversations that we already had. So I'm grateful to all of you for participating. And yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I
We don't
finally
know.
made it out.
Yeah,
None of us want. Yeah, that's good to have you with us, Alyssa. Yeah, I was happy to see that you said you were hoping to make it and you got here and you got your stuff done before too, so you didn't have to think about that.
Yes. Yeah, it's been quite a week and it's only Wednesday, so this was nice.
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, there's a nice meme that could go good with this conversation, which is like somebody posted like January was the best year yet or something something like that. It does feel like a long January and now we're in February, so but I think we're all having that feeling of not wanting to go, like we don't want to end this experience, so we're gonna have to learn how to let go, now and be able to end it.
Yeah, endings.
Yeah, I think I'm ready for bed.
Oh, have
Thank
a
you.
good sleep. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nathan.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Have a
Bye.
good one.
Good night. Bye bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye,
Bye.
Jesse. You're still there.